that had 12 different high schools in my youth group. Now, I come from a small town in Oxford, Alabama, and I was working in a small town in Arkansas, and now we're in Huntsville, Alabama, and I've got kids in my youth group, and there's 12 different high schools that they come from. That doesn't count how many middle schools were there. And I had kids from divorced families, and I had little girls who cut themselves, and I had people with eating disorders, and I had children with multiple problems, and I was just not adequate. I was not prepared to deal with all that. So I talked to my elders, and I said, I sort of think maybe I've got youth ministry figured out, but I don't know how to actually minister to some of these kids that are hurting. Instead of going to youth ministers conferences, instead of going to some of those things that the lectureships offer, could I use my professional development to study psychology? And my elders were wise and gracious, and they let me do that. And so I began to take psychology classes, and one thing led to another, and I ended up with a master's degree in counseling psychology. And after being able to apply those skills to the kids, I eventually went into private practice. And so my business at home is I'm in private practice as a licensed professional counselor, and I also do a little bit of consulting. I work super part-time for a church. They let me travel a lot. When I'm there, they use me. When I'm not there, they don't worry about it. I preach about once a month. I'm teaching a class right now on Wednesday nights. Every year I do a 13-week series at my home church, and I don't travel. And then we do some special events. So that what they call me is the intergenerational minister. That means I'm too old to work with the kids and too young to work with the senior citizens, is what that really means. But when I left youth ministry, when I said, okay, I'm going to go into private practice and run this little therapy business and this little consulting business, I wanted to maybe put some things in writing so that all the years I'd spent as a youth minister wouldn't just go away. So I'd been a youth minister from 1980 until 1998. Now, after I went into private practice, I did part-time youth ministry for another 14 years. But my youth ministry philosophy is based on a book, and it's not about youth ministry, it's about parenting. But the book is entitled Raising Self-Reliant Children in a Self-Indulgent World by Stephen H. Glenn. I read that book, and it was like, eye-opening. It was transformative for me. And I wrote Dr. Glenn. I said, look, I'm in youth ministry. I work a lot with kids, and I would like to take some of the things you've taught. And my youth ministry theory kind of falls into several things that involves not just parenting, but people in general. And this is the text. This is the text I use for that. And it comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. And Paul's writing to the church at Thessalonica. And it's really not a doctrinal thing. Paul is in his greeting says, I want you to remember these things. And so Paul says to this church, he says, you are witnesses in God also how devoutly, justly, and blamelessly we behaved ourselves among you who believe. As you know, we exhorted, we comforted, and charged every one of you as a father does his own children, that you should walk worthy of God who called